Welcome, everybody, to the American Space Museum. I'm Marquette, and we're so glad you're with us to stay curious on a Friday. Unfortunately, Triple T's feeling ill, so we're not going to have any tales from the White Room. I whipped up a bunch of other tales here for you, including 3 astronaut birthdays, the maiden flight of the last space shuttle Endeavour, and we're going to look at America's first spaceman, Alan Shepard, as his historic Mercury flight was 61 years ago yesterday. So thank you for Darren Roberts is our, we got happy birthday up there. Darren Roberts is our helping me do this Streamlabs as Marty Winkle had a commitment at the last minute, my co-producer. So thank you, Darren, for being there. We got Triple T on the bottom. Let's see if I can get rid of that. Trying to learn. There we go. Okay. So our Streamlabs situation here is looking good. Everyone, glad that you're watching us on Facebook Live, Twitch, or Spotify. We've got some guests here in our conference room. Grab a chair if you want and sit down. Where are you all from? Arizona. All right. Well, you can watch us on YouTube or Facebook. And we've done, this is about our 600th show since March 23rd, 2020, when the whole world shut down for the pandemic, and we did this to reach out to students originally. We thought we'd be doing school tours virtually, and instead we've reached out to you beautiful people in the space community, like Rich Jones, who's commented on our Facebook page. Thank you for watching. James Bonstock and Hilda Hanks and CJ Newell have liked some of our posts today. And what I have behind me is a beautiful photograph of the Space Shuttle Endeavour on its pad. This was America's replacement of the Challenger, authorized by Congress. It was built in 30 years ago, launched for $1.7 billion 30 years ago. In today's money, that has doubled. It would cost $3.5 billion to build a space shuttle today. So isn't that incredible? Inflation and all that sort of stuff. So let's see. We're going to kick off today. Anyway, that is a photograph by Mark Yusiak, the Yusiak brothers in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, are great friends of our museum now. They have, in fact, bequeathed us their collection of over 70 shuttle launches for us to use in any form or fashion. And we certainly appreciate that, as we do everybody who supports our nonprofit here in downtown Titusville. And want to give a shout out to the Hyatt Place Hotel, about 3 miles from us, where we had a wonderful Shuttle Fest, inaugural Shuttle Fest, 250 people. We melted down that hotel. Actually, probably too small to have Shuttle Fest 2, but we're scheduling it somewhere April 15th next year. So you want to take part in that. We're very proud of our Shuttle Fest. 3 weeks ago, we promised 2 astronauts, Winston Scott and Mike McCulley, and 4 showed up, as Nicole Stott and Story Musgrave crashed our party, and we were glad to see them. Well, let's kick off a little bit with what we love to talk about on Stay Curious, and that is astronaut birthdays, because over 300 American astronauts are in our communities doing wonderful things for our youth, inspiring the next generation, as well as keeping us space geeks whetting our appetites with their wonderful adventures. Dave Wheelock's birthday was May 5th, yesterday. We had a great conversation yesterday with 2 book authors. Where's their book at? Mikey Haddad and David Shaler wrote a book on payloads. I took that back to my desk as I'm looking around here. But let's get back to our astronauts here. Doug Wheelock was born in Binghamton, New York, May 5th, 1960. He's 61. He had 178 days on an expedition at the space station, and there he is meeting some people. Born today, 3 astronauts born today, so it might be a good day if you're born May 6th to consider being an astronaut. Just ask these 3 birth mates. Dave Leesma, Chakai Mukai, the Japanese lady, and Ohionaut Don Thomas, all born today. Here's Dave Cornell Leesma, was born May 6, 1949 in Muskegon, Michigan. So we know Larry Pusker knows that. Larry Pushker. And then we've got, let's see, he's had 3 space flights, 22 days in space. His first flight was 84. Then he did STS 28 and 45. So one of the early third of the shuttle in there. So happy birthday to Dave Leesma, who is 73 years old today. And then Japan astronaut, Mukai, she is Shikai Mukai, was born May 6, 1952. So she is 70 years old today. She was on the famous STS-95 with John Glenn, and XTS-65 was her other mission. And just a handful of Japanese astronauts, so you know that this lady is a great example to the men and women of her native country. But, of course, I love celebrating this Ohionaut, Don Thomas, born in Cleveland, Ohio, 67 years ago, one of 25 Buckeye astronauts, and I'm born in Findlay. None of them are born in Findlay. We just had, who was born in Mansfield, Ohio, the other week? I can't remember. I need to keep that in front of me. But 2 days ago. I'll think of it in a minute. But let's talk about Mr. Don Thomas, who has been in our museum when I was on vacation, and is a great guy. He's well known out at Kennedy Visitors Complex, always telling his tale out there of the STS-70 mission in 1995, when 4 of the 5 astronauts were from the state of Ohio, and the other astronaut, I think the governor made him an honorary Buckeye for that flight. Don grew up in Cleveland, Ohio. His book, Orbit of Discovery, published by the University of Akron Press, is a popular book. Talks about the All-Ohio Shuttle mission, as well as it's also remembered as the Woodpecker flight, because before that STS-70 mission, woodpeckers attacked the orange fuel tank on there, and people were wondering what was going on. So, all right, I'm looking around here because I am by myself today. Marty is had an emergency, and I'm not seeing any comments from anybody. So I hope that our show is getting out there. It is recording, so that all looks good. There just might be a reason I'm not seeing comments. So Don Thomas, happy birthday to you. He has promised to come back to our museum. Oh, there he is. Of course, that is the Cleveland Browns helmet behind him, the only NFL, and he's got a Cleveland Browns helmet there. Distinctive because it's the only NFL helmet without an emblem on the side of it. It's just our burnt orange is our colors. And there's Don doing what you know he loves to do best. He loves to talk to kids. He is one of the most active astronauts, talking to thousands, I mean tens of thousands of kids every year in his native state as well as around the country. So kudos to you, Don Thomas. Well, we're going to step back 61 years and look at a little bit of the life of America's first spaceman. And here he is in what I like to call an unusual photograph that you might not have seen. Of course, that is Alan Shepard, who was launched 61 years ago yesterday on a rocket that was designed to have a nuclear or have a warhead on it. To at least hit Cuba, and then that was only powerful enough to put a suborbital flight. It wasn't powerful enough to get the momentum to go 17,500 miles an hour. That's why we used the Atlas rocket to launch John Glenn a year and a few months later. But let's look a little bit at Alan Shepard. He, of course, has passed. He died in 1998 at age 74 of leukemia, taken away way too young. And but he was one of the first original 7 Mercury astronauts. So they were all Alpha Dog male test pilots that all of them wanted to be the first because they knew it would be famous. Shepard, in a nutshell, of course, he's known for his Mercury mission. But then did you know that he was going to do Mercury Atlas 10 was planned to be a 3-day mission, okay? After the 1.5 days of Gordon Cooper, he was going to fly a 3-day mission. And they decided they didn't need that. They wanted to transition to the Gemini two-man program, and Shepard was going to be the commander of the first Gemini, which that went to Gus Grissom because Shepard came up with Meniere's disease, a dizziness in or ear infection that creates nausea, but he had that surgically repaired. And I want to look at my notes here because a great trivia question is, in 1968, Alan Shepard had surgery on his ear to correct Meniere's disease at St. Vincent's Hospital in Los Angeles. What was his pseudonym that he checked in? In 1968, he couldn't go anywhere as Alan Shepard, okay? This was America's most popular astronaut behind John Glenn, of course. The pseudonym was Victor Poulos, Poulos. So that's a little Wikipedia, and it is substantiated twice in their footnotes there. So Victor Poulos was Alan Shepard's pseudonym when he had his ear corrected, and he was restored to full status in 1969 on May 7th, which is tomorrow, as we're giving you this broadcast of Stay Curious about our 600th episode that we've been giving to you on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Spotify. Of course, we've just been on YouTube and those other ones besides Facebook since July, thanks to our Trekkie Techie, Jessica Galloway, who helped us get into this Streamlabs world here. So we're very grateful that you all are enjoying us. Please tell your friends to like, share, follow us, or subscribe to us. And if you find it in your heart to support our nonprofit, there's ways to do that through PayPal on our website. So, and like I say many times, so keep us going. We need bushel baskets full of these right here. $100 bills are accepted by the bushel basket full. And you do respond to that. And of course, it's a great tax deduction for our 501c3 here in Florida. There's an unusual picture of the man, Alan Shepard. And then here they made a stamp out of him, a forever stamp that shows the Redstone rocket and the Mercury's capsule behind him. I would have put a little hint of his moonwalk on there behind him there once they did but this was celebrating Project Mercury. Such was the competition for Project Mercury that Shepard quit smoking and adapted Glenn's habit of taking a morning jog. All right, this is the 1960s, so people that worked out in gyms and so forth were kind of thought as in a different way than we think about people working out at the gym today, like I do and so many of us senior citizens do to lower our insurance rates and so forth. But and it was not unusual for all these astronauts to smoke cigarettes, okay? It was sort of like the first time I saw the Beatles smoking a cigarette, as a teenager. You're going like, damn, they're smoking cigarettes, But on the cover of Rubber Soul is where you would have probably seen that for the first time. So astronauts, they drank, they smoked, they did everything that because they were test pilots. And anytime they got into a plane, there could be something that would cause them not to come back. And this is why they were the perfect choice for the early astronauts, because they could face danger and spit at it in the eyes, so to speak. So imagine this. You're one of the first astronauts. You're announced in 1959, and April 9th is when the Mercury 7 were introduced. And the magnitude ahead of them was very clear. 2 weeks later, they went to see the launch of an Atlas rocket that was going to carry them to space. It blew up, okay? And the astronauts were stunned, reporters said, and Shepard turned to John Glenn and said, well, I'm glad they got that one out of the way. And such was life on the rocket ranch, where mistakes like that were actually learning lessons to find out what happened and correct it so it never happened again. Well, after correcting that surgery, after he had Meniere's disease, Shepard and his the other Mercury astronaut that didn't fly, Deke Slayton, they both. Let me take that off for a second. Let me go that way. Deke Slayton and Shepard became the astronaut office chiefs that decided the crews that were going to fly. All right, so they paired up the crews for Gemini, and then they started pairing up the Apollo 3-man crews. And then he had his hearing fixed, so he started training, and he appointed himself, Alan Shepard did, as commander of Apollo 13. Well, he felt like he was a little behind in training. He'd been out of action, so to speak, for a while. So he asked Jim Lovell if he would switch his command, if they could swap crews, and Jim Lovell's crew for 14 become the crew for 13, and he would then have an extra 3 or 4 months to train with his crew for Apollo 14. And they did that. The rest is history, or it could have been Alan Shepard and Stu Rosa and Ed Mitchell on the Apollo 13 vehicle that was lucky to come back. And generally, when I talk about Apollo 13 in the movie, generally, yes, NASA people and astronauts enjoy the accuracy of Apollo 13 movies. So I know many of you will see it 2 or 3 times a year. They show it all the time on TBS or TNT or one of those channels. So, and glad they do. It's a lot of fun to watch. Well, so Alan Shepard says, I'm going to fly to the moon, okay, and this is him at the lunar training vehicle. The flying bedstead is what they called this. This was something that they cobbled together. Above his head is the cabin where the astronaut would sit and maneuver like you were landing on the moon in 1/6 gravity. And it mimicked that pretty good. Of course, famously, about 3 weeks before the Apollo 11 launch, Neil Armstrong crashed on this. It could have killed him, and he ejected out of that. But there's Alan Shepard in front of the flying bedstead, the LTTV. And here he is in the suit room, getting suited up for Apollo 14, excuse me. Note the red stripes on his arms and also legs, and his helmet had a red stripe. On Apollo 11 and 12, when they got the pictures back, they couldn't tell who was who. They're just 2 guys in white snowsuits on the moon. So they cured that by putting the red stripes on the commander. And this is still done on spacewalks on the International Space Station, where one of the lead astronaut is designated, and he or she wears the spacesuit that has red around the legs and the arms and the helmet. But there is a 47-year-old Alan Shepard, the oldest man to go to the moon and walk on the moon. And there he is on the moon. You got to wave Old Glory here when you're talking about Alan Shepard. And, of course, Cocoa Beach is well known to him. We have Alan Shepard Park at Cocoa Beach. Let me look up a couple other notes here on Alan Shepard, his fabulous career. Of course, you're going to remember, Mark, you're not talking about the golf balls that he hit on the moon. Yes, he did. He had a Wilson 6-iron, all right, and I think they were McGregor golf balls that he fashioned a lunar handle, put the McGregor 6-iron on there and whacked at a couple golf balls. And not to be outdone, his moonwalking buddy Edgar Mitchell took one of those poles and did a javelin toss, okay, on there. But obviously an avid golfer, and he was already a millionaire when he went to the moon because he parlayed his fame of the Mercury mission 61 years ago into buying real estate around Houston, knowing that the astronauts would have to have homes to live in. Pretty smart cookie, this Alan Shepard. A savvy businessman. He was involved in a lot of successful things as opposed to several astronauts that got involved in things that didn't work out too well. Of course, Shepard, then tragically, he passed away in 1998 after being diagnosed with lymphatic leukemia. In 2 years, he was gone. But this was a guy that was very devoted to his children. And you made it when you're on the cover of Time magazine. And there's a lot of people watching us today under 30 years old going, what is Time magazine? And I shudder at that. But Time and Newsweek and U.S. News and World Report, we're our weekly digest of how we kept up with the news every day. It wasn't on our smartphones, diving into all the apps that you can for news on there. So 1961 or 62, cover of Time magazine, where he says, "What a beautiful sight." And there is the great Alan Shepard being suited up there for his Mercury flight. And he was devoted to his children, Julie, Laura, and Alice. They were often the only astronauts' children at NASA events. And we got to meet Laura Shepard Churchley there in the middle beside me. Hi, Marky. There's Mark Yusiak there. He shaved his whiskers off for about 25 hours, I think, and then started growing them back. She bopped into our museum, and I still want to shoot myself in the foot for not hauling her behind our Stay Curious set here, making her wait. But she said she'll be back. But she came to the museum, popped in, because I had a conversation with her years later, almost to the day after her father's flight. And 23 years after his death, on December 11th, flew the Blue Origin New Shepard 5 spaceship, all right, on a suborbital flight. And you would be more inclined to remember the football player Michael Strahan was also accompanying her, and a bunch of other people. And boy, she just wouldn't stop talking about that. She was awesome. So we hope to have her on Stay Curious here very soon. To back up, you want to read the book about Alan Shepard, written with Jade Barbary and Howard Benedict, two outstanding journalists, called Moonshot, The Inside Story of America's Race to the Moon. Deke Slayton also helped out with that. That is a good book. And so check that out, Moonshot. And I know many of you have it in your library. I wonder if Julie Parker does. I know Peggy Honeycutt's probably got that in her library because she watches Stay Curious. Hi, Jay. Hope you all are doing good and enjoy a fabulous weekend here. And thank you for all the support the Honeycutts do for our museum here. Well, we're going to segue into that to current events. As far as 30 years ago also was the maiden voyage of this beautiful spaceship that now resides in the Los Angeles Science Museum, and I'm talking about Endeavour, of course. Launched 30 years ago, May 6, 1992, the Maiden Flight was the replacement for Orbiter Challenger and was unique in two aspects. The spaceship was named by school children at the request of President Bush, G.W. Bush, and it also performed the only three-person extravehicular activity or spacewalk conducted by any space agency. Now, those schools that went into contest that won, George Bush Endeavour was suggested by 1/3 of the participating schools, with George Herbert Walker Bush eventually selecting it on the advice of NASA Administrator Richard Truly. And they pulled the winners out of a hat, I believe, in Senatobia Middle School in Mississippi and Tahula Falls School in Tahula Falls, Georgia, were chosen, and their school flags are the mastheads up there. That's what the blue and yellow, or blue and gold, and the gray and white, I think, or it's green and white, is on the masthead above Endeavour. Of course, Endeavour is the sailing ship, the British HMS Endeavour with a O-U-R, everybody, which took Captain James Cook on his first voyage in 1768, James Cook being one of the most famous early sailing pioneers that was interested in science at the time. And in May 2020, the first crewed launch that NASA's never done, Space Dragon 2, or Demo 2, of Doug Hurley and Bob Behnken was named Endeavour in honor of the shuttle. And Endeavour, again, Endeavour, was the name of the command module on Apollo 15. And the lunar module was named Falcon. So this primary mission of this 9-day mission, and here's the crew going out there, and the crew was involved. Dan Bridenstine. This is a Mark Yusiak photograph of the crew coming out. It was a twilight launch, so this is probably about 3 in the afternoon. And one of the keys that the Yusiak brothers tell me of doing these things, and also Carlton Bailey, hi to Carlton out there, because he photographed these things too, was you're looking to get all astronauts' heads, you know, in the picture. And there you see you got a couple in the back that aren't too clearly seen as Dan Bridenstine is leading his crew out there. And to his left, behind him, is Bruce Melnick. And Bruce Melnick is the resident astronaut at the Kennedy Space Center Visitors Complex and a great friend of our museum. And the lady in the middle is Kathy Thornton. And we have Kathy Thornton's blue suit, blue flight suit, 5'6" to match her frame there, on display as we speak in our Hubble gallery, as she was part of one of the Hubble repair missions that put the glasses on that myopic instrument once they got it up there. So we love these shots from our Yusiak friends. And there again is this gorgeous shot behind me. The launch, all right, as seen from the press site across the lagoon there. Again, it was a twilight launch coming at about 7:30 at night. Look at that beautiful twilight behind there. A gorgeous liftoff there by Mark Yusiak and Tom using a Hasselblad camera. And Mark is getting a little creative there with the telephoto lens and the Endeavour flag flying in the back. And there must have been some sort of haze or something going on there. And I threw this one in because, being a photographer, you would go, oh my gosh, that steam cloud is covering up the whole orbiter. Oh man, you know, doggone it. This is a remote shot, of course. They had no control over the remote being triggered by the sound of the ignition. And as you see, that big old steam cloud there, caused by the sound suppression system, is hiding the orbiter there. But still a cool shot, Mark and Tom. All right, what have I got next after this? Oh, the repair. This was a satellite, an Intel satellite, okay, that was put into orbit by a Titan III. And on the bottom of it was a motor that was to ignite once it got up to a low orbit, and then by the Titan up to about 200 miles high. And then the other motor was going to put it up to a 22,000-mile geosynchronous orbit, so it would stay there and then broadcast TV and telephones and everything for over a decade. Well, the motor didn't work, so it got stranded in the low orbit. So they thought, well, this is what our space truck's about, going up there, getting satellites and repairing them. So Intelsat, I forget, Westinghouse, I think, built it. Well, we'll go up there and grab that for about, let's see, that's a $200 million satellite, and we'll do it for $60 million. And so I don't know what they did it for, but there was some negotiation. They grabbed it with a robotic arm. And to catch it, they did not grab it with a robotic arm. There was no straps on there to do it. So the only way they could get it, they figured, was to get 2 astronauts out there to stop it. But the thing's so big around, they needed 3. So this is the only 3-man spacewalk performed by Thomas Akers, Pierre Thought, and Richard Heeb. And looking out the window and taking this picture was Bruce Melnick and Kathy Thornton. All right, while Chilton and Brandenstein flew the shuttle, making sure it didn't accidentally bump too close to this thing. What a out-of-the-box thing they did 30 years ago. They probably look back and would never do it again with today's overly risk assessment, in my opinion, on things. But of course, the space gloves could have torn and all kinds of things. But they brought it in there, cradled it, put a different motor on it, then released it, and it went up to geosynchronous orbit after the shuttle got far enough away from it, and gave over 10 years of service, okay, to our space, our telecommunications business there. So a couple other firsts of Endeavour. It was the second and fourth longest EVAs to date, all right, that they performed. Was over 8 hours and 9 minutes was that long, almost 8.5 hours was that 3-man EVA. And it had 4 extravehicular activities, all right? And it was the first shuttle requiring 3 rendezvous with an orbiting spacecraft, all right? And it was the first one to use a drag chute to slow it down when it landed at Kennedy Space Center 9 days after liftoff. So hope that you've enjoyed all this little bit of space history. I'm going to ask Darren to slide over there and help get me out of here in just a minute. But we know that y'all are sending get well wishes to Travis. He has a little stomach virus, I believe, going on there. Poor guy. And talked to him today, and he was getting some medicine for it and all. So we'll hopefully have Triple T back next Friday with you. And I want to remind everybody that you get out, beautiful weekend, spring weekend. Everyone's got spring fever. At the month of May, get out there and be safe, and you're going to notice the moon in the sky. So get you a little bit of moonshine, as the first quarter moon is going to be Sunday. And then a week from Sunday is going to be a total eclipse of the moon that we'll be talking about Monday on our Backyard Astronomy segment of Stay Curious. And then, of course, we'll have to be talking about it a week from today on Friday so that you don't miss a beautiful lunar eclipse that's going to be from about 11 o'clock at Sunday night, next Sunday, until about 1 in the morning type of thing. So that's Eastern Standard Time. So a beautiful picture, I think I took anyway. I think it's beautiful of the first quarter moon in our sky. You'll be seeing that moon dance out there. So hope that you enjoy it very much. And let me do this. There, we'll do this. As I say, thank you to everybody, particularly our whole staff here at the American Space Museum, Angie Roberts and Anita Truex, and our director, Karen Conklin, and I are the paid employees that keep our little ship afloat here. Darren Roberts is coming on board as our education director to work on our STEAM program that is so important to our museum to ignite the future generation with our artifacts here in our one-of-a-kind space museum in downtown Titusville. So that's enough from me, Mark Marquette, and we can't wait to see you in our museum soon to what? Bridge the space between us.